Peace. Once again is on. This is Brother Philip A. Muhammad from the Lines Out the Cage. I like to say in the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful, I bear witness that there is no God worthy of worship except Allah, who appeared in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. I also bear witness that the most honorable Elijah Muhammad is the exalted and living Christ. I thirdly like to bear witness that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is our divine, or his divine servant, Allah's divine servant, warner, criterion, and #1 student of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad and Master Farad Muhammad. In those three names, I greet you in the Arabic language of peace. Assalamu alaikum. This is our part 2. This is my part 2 video that is entitled basically a message to all the followers of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. I believe that we made or laid an adequate foundation for what it is that I want to share with you throughout these videos, this series of videos that I'm producing. I don't know exactly how many that I'm going to share with you, but I'm going to share those. I'm going to continue to make the videos until I have out or put out that which I have to share with you. The first video was long because I want to make sure that not only did I give you the motivation for what I was saying, not only did I desire to give you an understanding of the intent of what I was saying, the purpose. I also wanted to put you in a proper mood and mental frame of reference in terms of where I'm coming from. That's why I included the music that I put on it, the pictures, and that's the reason why that particular part 1 ended the way it did. Now, it's very difficult to talk to a camera and a microphone when there's no people around where you can look at them and see their face, their facial expressions and their body language to come or to see if you are being understood. In my mind, I make perfect sense, but there's a burden on me to make my point, but there's also a burden upon me to make sure that I present my points in a way that they can be understood. There's an inherent difficulty that comes with speaking your mind, seeking clarity, trying to build understanding while talking to a computer. So I hope you bear witness, or you bear with me while we go through this particular journey together. If you're not clear of my motives and the foundation of what I'm about to say, I ask you to go back and review part 1. If you are comfortable with your understanding in terms of part 1, I thank you and I appreciate you for taking time out of your busy schedule to walk with me during part 2. I'm going to focus on, in part 2, I'm going to focus on instruction number 1 that is given to us by Master Farad Muhammad. As students of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, we say that Master Farad Muhammad is Allah in person. When Master Farad Muhammad gives us an instruction, that means Allah is giving us instructions, because Allah appeared in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, and Master Farad Muhammad is Allah in person. When Master Farad Muhammad gives us an instruction, we are obligated, if we call ourselves Muslims, to follow those instructions. It is said that the definition of Muslim is one who submits his or her will to do the will of Allah. The will of Allah, is desire, It is Allah's idea. It is Allah's desire. It is his intent. It is his purpose. It is his objective. It is his goal. But he has a systematic program because he deals with mathematics. So to reach certain or meet certain objectives and to fulfill certain goals, he produces a program, which is a series of steps that are designed to take you from one point to another, from where you start to where you meet or reach the goal or objective. The purpose and the motivation is the fuel that drives you along during this journey. Your understanding, your observational awareness, your ability to follow instructions and to understand clearly those instructions is what allows you to mechanically, functionally move down the road or move down the path to that objective or to the goal. Now remember, the goal and the objective is in Master Fard Muhammad's mind. And he came with teachings and he revealed his objective and his mind through his servant or messenger, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. We might not be able to fully understand the totality and the significance of Allah's goal and objective because our minds have not been developed enough to be functionally capable or able to envision a vision that is rooted in the mind of the Supreme Being. In order to have a supreme understanding of a supreme vision, then we must have the mind of a supreme student. Supreme means highest level, highest quality, highest rank, and it also means final. So we can't just be regular students if we're being taught into an objective, into a goal. We have to be supreme students if we want to get a supreme understanding. All right? But it takes time to be developed into a supreme student. You just don't become a supreme student by saying you want to be a supreme student. But why is this important? We say as Muslims that we are supposed to submit ourselves, our will, to do the will of Allah. And the will of Allah is contained, or the supreme wisdom and the teachings of Allah through his messenger, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, contains aspects and indications of his will for us. And as we study and begin to process the understanding or come into an understanding of what it is we are studying, then our ability to more fully or advance our understanding, our ability to actually see the vision of the messenger of Master Fard Muhammad increases. What I'm saying is, as we study the wisdom and the teachings, we begin to get a clearer indication of Allah's purpose and his intent and his objective and his goal for us. Limited study leads to limited understanding. Therefore, we don't necessarily see what we need to see in terms of Allah's objective and goal for us. We have to submit ourselves to Allah by following his instructions. Now, how can we be Muslims? Now, we know the true and living God who came in person. We ain't dealing with a mystery God or a spook God. We know Allah's will to a certain point. Clearly, we have clear instructions. And those instructions are an indication, are in fact, the will of Allah. It is not the complete will of Allah, but those instructions are given to us now And those instructions have to be followed to the letter if we are to advance into a higher understanding of Allah's will and thereby and subsequently receive additional instructions. Now, in this book, this is the Nation of Islam Official Guide to the Ministry by Minister Ava. You get here and you see restrictive laws. Now, restrictive laws are here, and there's like 36 of them. Maybe 26. But this first restrictive law is, obey Allah, His apostle, and believe the message He has sent to you and me by His messenger. Now, in this book, Restrictive Laws of Islam, there's 16. So if there's 36 in that book, 16 in this book, where did the other 20 go? See, the minister's changing the teachings. No. The minister is making it easy for us to understand the teachings. And since we didn't understand the teachings, when he makes it simple and plain enough for us to understand it, you say he's changed it. But he didn't change it. He gave it to you in your language so that you can understand it, because apparently, based upon your practical and my practical demonstration of Islam, we have a lack of understanding. So what we think we know and what we think we have has not rendered the results that Allah intends for us. So through His minister, Allah simplifies and makes plainer that which we have. When Allah works as a mercy through the minister to make it more simple for you and I, you say that the minister changed the teachings, when he did not change the teachings. He made the teachings simple because he's the number one student. And since he's the number one student, he grows into an aid of the teacher. So the aid of a teacher is not a substitute teacher. The teacher is still here. The teachings are still here. He does not substitute for the teacher. He's a teacher's aid. And what a teacher aid does as a fellow student, knowing the difficulties of the student, the teacher's aide who loves the teachings, loves the teacher, loves the class, and loves the school, and loves the objective of the school, then learns and studies and processes the information and passes on the information to other brothers and sisters in the class so that they can get a clearer and more brighter understanding of what it is they have. But simple-minded ones who are otherwise getting F's anyway will use any justification and excuse, not simply to attack the teacher's aid, but in reality the frustration with the class and your and I inability to have progress and to make progress. We then attack the teacher's aid because we too stupid or we too smart to attack the Christ and the God, which are the controllers and owners of the classroom. So it's easy to attack the minister. But since you don't understand the minister, when you attack the minister, you are actually attacking Allah and His Christ, which is furthering our illness, furthering our insanity, and further debilitating our ability to see progress in terms of the teachings. So in the very near future, you're going to throw the book down. You're going to throw the teachings down. You're going to throw the Nation of Islam down. When are you going to do it? When you have no one else to blame. When the minister leaves and you no longer have anyone to blame for your dysfunction and your ability to understand and make knowledge born and utilize these teachings that you try to use to beat the hell up out of the minister and to prove that the minister has deviated, but you in your understanding, you have a superior understanding, you have enough understanding to attack the minister and say he's wrong. but you don't have enough practical understanding to take what you think you know, which is right in your mind, to produce a superior product so that the people can see your product measured against the minister's product, can see your service measured up against the minister's service, and choose between the two. Your whole entire platform is to discredit the minister, not understanding that your work of discrediting the minister is discrediting in the minds of others the teachings of Master Fard Muhammad and his Christ. You think in your mind, because you don't understand, that you are helping Master Fard Muhammad and the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad because in attacking the minister, because your lack of understanding makes you think that the reason why you're not successful is because the minister's popularity and his fame is preventing you from being successful. And you think in your warped mind that if you get rid of the minister and those with the minister, that then you would have a clearer path to the people. You would have a clearer path to the people, and then you would be more effective in bringing your version or your understanding of the messenger's teachings into reality. So you are upset at the minister, and you think the minister is preventing you and subsequently the real teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad from reaching the people. So you attack the minister, not understanding that if you have the superior understanding, you would naturally have the superior product, service, or fruit. Your ability to produce, and the fact that you take so much time attacking the minister is indicative of a greater problem. Number one, you have a problem with understanding reality. Number two, you have a deep problem understanding the mathematical process of Allah himself. Number three, you have a deep problem in understanding the past history and how it affects our present day reality. And number four, you have a complete inability to grasp your proper role as it relates to Master Fard Muhammad and the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, because too many of us have yet to truly study and memorize our lessons by heart, follow the first instruction. And by failing to do that, we don't have a clear knowledge of ourselves and our functional purpose or role within those teachings. So you're not the one who should be doing what you think you should be doing. You're not the one who should be practicing or being in a certain position that you think is in your position, is your position. So of course, if you're not the right person doing the right thing, you're not going to have the right results. But of course, you're not going to blame your understanding. You're not going to blame yourself. You're going to blame the minister. Perhaps if you go back to the first instruction, each student or the student must study his assignment. Lesson number 1. Each student should copy the answers of lesson of Minister Elijah Muhammad and study until the student is able to memorize all answers to of said lesson number 1. That's your first instruction. Have you done it? All you critics of the messenger, of the minister, all you folks who think you have a superior wisdom, do you know lesson number 1 100% by heart? I would like to challenge you. I would like the opportunity to test you. So when it comes to this particular restrictive law, it doesn't say, number 1, obey Allah and his messenger. It says worship no God but Allah, the one the messenger represents to us. See, the minister changed the teachings. See, he has no right. Listen, man, consider the time in what must be done. Consider the time in what must be done. Think about, process the time. What's taking place? What's the condition of the people? What is their impediment? How can we solve it? The teachings give you indications of how you're supposed to simplify the teachings. It also says the nation of Islam is all wise and does everything right and exact. Being all wise and being right and exact is time sensitive. It means to be timely, to be precise, to be correct in your mathematical understanding. And when you have a mathematical understanding, you present your mathematical understanding in the proper term. Term means understanding. Term means time. Term also means agreement. The terms of the agreement. Term is time. Term is meaning. Term is definition. So, listen. The Nation of Islam is all wise and does everything right and exact. And it's mathematics. And mathematics must be spoken and demonstrated in a mathematical term, in a proper term. If you don't understand mathematics, you won't understand the terms of mathematics. And then you will not understand that you have to consider the time and what must be done. But what must be done is rooted in the teachings. So what you think is the changing of the teachings is not the changing of the teachings, it's the changing of the demonstration or the practical use of the teachings. It's the same exact teachings, but you're putting the teachings in the different location. It's moving, which is making time. I'm going to say it like this. The Nation of Islam, right? Islam is mathematics and mathematics is Islam. It stands true. That means even if it don't move, you can't, it stands true. You can always prove it at no limit of time, right? So after learning mathematics, which is Islam, and Islam is mathematics, then, see, first process, you got to learn mathematics, which is Islam. So you got to learn Islam. But then there's a second phase to this. After learning mathematics, which is Islam, and Islam is mathematics, it stands true. Then you must learn to use it to secure or secure some benefit while you are living. Luxury, money, good home, friendships, in all walks of life. Sit yourself in heaven at once. That is the greatest desire of your brother and your teacher. What I want you to focus on, and that's pregnant right there, but what I want you to focus on is this. Islam stands true. It's the truth. You can look at it. You can observe it. Truth is that which you can observe and can be demonstrated. Anything that cannot be observed or demonstrated is a theory. Scientists look for observational evidence to separate fact from fiction, theory from reality. So we're looking for truth because truth will present itself. If you don't present your truth, you're still a mystery. If you cannot produce evidence that can be observed through proper observation, then it's not truth at all. It might be your truth because you can see it in your head. It's real in your head. But if nobody else can see it, then it's a theory. In our perspective, it's an idea. Sounds cool, but it's not true. So if you want to produce truth, you present truth. There's truth. Look at it. Truth don't have to defend itself. You just present it, point to it, and it'll defend and present itself. It stands true. But to prove that it's true, see? To prove it, it must be proven at no limit of time. After learning mathematics, which is Islam, and Islam is mathematics, it stands true. Then you must learn to use it. After learning mathematics, which is Islam, and Islam is mathematics, then you must learn to use it. Listen, Islam stands true. It can always be proven at no limit of time. Proven at no limit of time. Time is motion. So to prove something, there must not be no limit to its motion. To prove something, you don't talk about it. To prove something, you demonstrate it and you see it doing certain things. And so it's proven itself because there's no limit to his motion, there's no limit to his time. But motion and truth is connected. So motion and truth creates time. And so your mathematical theology must be presented in its proper time or proper term. And if you have the truth, but you don't know how to properly demonstrate it in its proper term, you will not be successful. For she knows all about you and she knows all about me. When we say worship no God but Allah, the minister is making it simple for you because we're simple-minded people. In the word worship, the definition of worship means obeisance. It means to be obedient. So one book says be obedient, meaning obey Allah. Well, if you understand what worship means, then what happened was you didn't change it, you clarified it for a spooky religious people, a dogmatic people. Worship no God but Allah, the one who the messenger represents to us, the one that the messenger teaches us about, the one that the messenger teaches us to follow and obey. And the worship of Allah is not the worship of a Christian or some type of religion in this particular world. Worship has to be defined into a practical demonstration of activity, effort, and duty. Worship has a functional purpose to fulfill an idea, an objective, to reach an objective, to fulfill or reach a goal. It has a motive, it has a purpose, and it is a system or a program, a step-by-step program that leads to the eventuality of an idea or vision. So worship is not sitting up, lighting incense and juggling flaming torches or killing roosters and pouring out blood, right? Staying on the prayer rail all day, walking around with beads. And I'm not making mockery, but that's not worship. Worship is an acknowledgement and recognition of your Creator or your God or your Lord. It is recognition. It is acknowledgement. Worship is being grateful. How can you be grateful if you don't take what you was given and put it to practical use? And the practical use then demonstrates what you have been given. And when you demonstrate what you have been given through your demonstration and the product that it produces or the service that it produces, the product and the service that you produce bears witness to the power of the God who gave you the power to produce a product or to produce a service. When we don't produce a product, when we don't produce a service, when we don't demonstrate our truth in a practical way, then we are bearing witness against the God who has given us instructions to do something with his teachings. We have a supreme wisdom, therefore we should be able to create a supreme lifestyle in our homes, in our communities, and for our nation. But if we have supreme wisdom, yet we still living a nigger life, or our lifestyle is below the common Christian, while we make mockery of others, they don't claim to meet God face to face. We claim that we have Allah in person who gave us instructions, yet we fail to follow those instructions. Yet we call ourselves Muslims. So obedience and worship is one and the same. But the beauty about Master Fard Muhammad is he does not want us to be obedient based on compliance. I said do it and you better comply. He wants us to obey him and follow his instructions by first getting us to agree with his instructions through understanding. That's the reason why we are students, because he is teaching us his mind step by step, by first teaching us our mind step by step. He calls us a student. It doesn't say the Muslim must study his assignment. It says the student must study his assignment. Must means you ain't got no choice. It says each student. It doesn't say each Muslim must copy the answers of lesson of Minister Elijah Muhammad. What is a lesson? A lesson is not just information. The lesson is information presented in a way that creates a process that leads to understanding. Understand? The supreme wisdom lessons is historical data That we shouldn't get locked up in just the data or the historical truths of the information, but we have to come to terms with the reason why he's given us this information. Why do we have this information? But more importantly, what do we do with it? If we don't have the information and we don't study and understand the information, then we can't do anything with the information. So many of our problems and our issues is rooted in the fact that, number one, we don't have the supreme wisdom. Number two, if we do have it, we don't study it. Number three, if we study it, we're not studying it to the point to where we're memorizing it. Why is it important for a student to memorize the lessons? Allah built himself up out of materials in the darkness. The world, the new world is coming in. And the new world is coming in, and it's a world of light. But the materials that are creating this new world, us, are now in the dark, because this is a world of darkness. But Allah is taking those materials, us, and building us up into a new world. And as we accept him, we transform, or we come out of darkness into the light. But this is seen on a universal scale. But it can be seen also on a practical and personal level as well. Because in your mind, your mind is constantly working with whatever is in your mind. The more you put in your mind, the more there is to work with. So when we memorize our lessons and we ask ourselves over and over again, who's the original man? Who's the original man? Who's the original man? And we answer that question. The original man is the Asiatic black man, the maker, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth, God of the universe. Huh? So when you memorize that over and over and over again, you're putting seeds in your mind. You are putting words in your mind. But the words are more than words. They're seeds, right? They're planets. Planets are something that is made and grown from the beginning. You are planting the seeds of Allah in your head, because the words that you are reciting, the words that you are memorizing, the words that you are driving into your subconscious are words that came from the mind of Allah. So when you take those words and you drive them into your mind, in reality, you're driving Allah's mind into your mind. So now Allah is in your mind at night when you're asleep. When you're feeling pain and frustration, you're experiencing pain of doubt, pain of frustration, pain of anxiety, pain of not understanding. That's when Allah goes to war with the materials in the darkness. And he builds himself up out of the materials that's in the darkness. But if you don't put no materials in the darkness, how can he build himself up and magnify or manifest what's in your mind through you if you don't put nothing in your mind? When you memorize your lessons, you are putting in your mind seeds that with the supreme wisdom and the practical application of the teachings of Muhammad, the wisdom is water, and the water begins to cause the seeds in your mind to germinate and sprout. But it first, when the seed sprouts and it's activated by the wisdom, the constant study of wisdom, and the worship or acknowledgement and recognition of Allah in person, then what happens is, when a seed bursts into existence or bursts into life, the seed shoots down first before you see its fruit come shooting through the dirt. It shoots down, the root shoots down first and creates a firm foundation so you can be stable in your pursuit and you're not easily moved in the wrong direction. And you will maintain your position. And so at that point, because you know Islam, because Islam is in you, you can stand. Because Islam stands true. But it only stands true as if you're rooted in Islam. Because the seed that you put in your mind causes you to be firmly planted on the ground, not in space. Firmly planted on the ground, and you stand firm and you stand resolute because you have the supreme wisdom, the mind of God, the words of God in your mind that makes you stable. so that you can put up with the wiles of Satan and the various currents that are designed to take you off your post. But then as you continue to grow, your foundation is set. It stands true. But in order to prove it at no limit of time, it then shoots through or out of your mind where everybody can see it and observe it. But what you think and what is in your mind and what you're resolute in will manifest itself through your fruit, through your labor. So what you produce and what people can see, because they can't see the root unless you show it to them. They can't see the root unless you show it to them. So your mind has seeds planted, and the root shoots down so you can be firm and so you can stand true. But then once that is done, then there's another shoot that shoots up and explodes out of your mind. That is your ideas. And your ideas come into fruition. And then your ideas begin to bear a witness of what's in your mind or what's in the dark that people can't see. So your thoughts and your ideas are in the dark. But then when your ideas come out of your mind, they are exposed to the light. And the only way it can deal in the light, because now people can attack it because they can see it. Your enemies will show up. Haters will show up. Scrutiny will show up. Criticism will show up. So how do you stand firm? Because you are rooted in your foundation. Understand? Because they're going to attack it. Now this is the evidence that you are God. Because idea and deity and identity share the same basic root or etymological root. Idea, deity, and identity is pretty much the same thing. Your identity is not what you say. Your identity is what you think and subsequently do as a result of what you're thinking. So if we want to see a man and how he thinks as a man thinketh, so is he as a woman thinks, so is she. Then we have to look at their day-to-day activity. What are they doing and what they are producing? And then you measure what they're doing and what they're producing against what they're saying. And if what you're saying is different than what you're producing, then you have a credibility gap and an integrity gap. That means you have no real foundation. So you're easily led in the wrong direction, hard to be led in the right. And you can't be trusted because you have no foundation. This is the essence of a hypocrite. He doubts what he or she has been given. And since he doubts what he or she has been given, you can't properly manifest it because you undermine your own existence by doubting the thoughts that originate in your mind. But the thoughts that originate in your mind don't come from you, they come from your creator. And Master Fard Muhammad is sharing the thoughts of the creator through his lessons. So here, lesson number 1 is said to be the student's assignment first. Lesson number 1 lays the base of our work today and gives the student a clear knowledge of his heavenly home and who is the enemy to him and his nation, or the best part of his heavenly home, the best part of the planet Earth. And who is the enemy to him and his nation, and why the enemy and righteous could not live together, and why was the righteous able to cast out his enemy. This teaches the student what he must do to or with the enemy of the righteous today. The righteous nation is now living in every part of the planet Earth. Therefore, the enemy must now be removed from every part of the planet Earth. So we, the Muslims, notice at this moment, the word Muslim ain't mentioned yet. Students, this teaches the student what he must do. This teaches the student a clear knowledge of himself and his heavenly home. This teaches who is the enemy to him and his nation. This teaches him what he must do. It is creating your foundation. You're founded and you're rooted in lesson number 1. So the wisdom that's in lesson number 1, the words that are in lesson number 1 are the seeds that need to be planted in your mind to create your foundation. How strong is your foundation? Well, how strong is your lessons? Because lesson number 1 lays the base of your work today. That means lesson number 1 is the foundation of your work today. Everything you do should be based on lesson number 1. If you have a weak foundation, you have a weak understanding and demonstration of the lessons. So you must be rooted in your lessons. It's the foundation of you and I activity. And it is a clarification of our identity. It clarifies who we are in relationship to who they are. It clarifies who the student is in relationship to who the teacher is. It clarifies who God is in relation as it relates to who the enemy is. And it gives us a clear understanding so that we can be firmly grounded in our Islam, because it stands true. Lesson number 1 takes your mind out of the sky and put it back on earth so you can go to work. It plants your feet on solid ground. If you don't know lesson number 1, and if you don't live your life based on lesson number 1 as students, then we're floating around in space because our feet are not on a foundation. And since our feet are not on the foundation of lesson number 1, anybody who sounds good can come up and sweep you up off your feet. You're neither here nor there. We're floating around like lint or butterflies. We don't have no foundation. We have no stability. And if we don't have no stability, we have no ability to be stable. Right? All right. And then it says, why is stress made to the Muslim? See, this is the first time Muslim comes. Why is stress made to the Muslim to copy the minister Elijah Muhammad's answers? The past history shows that the Almighty Allah sends prophets and apostles for the people's guide and example, and through the prophet, through the apostle, the mystery is revealed. So as we get our foundation secure in who we are, we look at the prophet, the apostles, and we study them. And by following them and their teachings, that which we don't know, which is articulated or said to be a mystery, becomes known through their demonstration, because they're demonstrating the truth. So as we study and follow the apostle, the prophet, the messenger of Allah, we are looking at a practical demonstration of the mind of God. So if we want to see God step up out of mystery, we watch the people who Allah raises up. And his raising up of prophets and apostles for his guide and example bears witness to the reality of God. So how do we know that Master Fard Muhammad is Allah? Because we see him? No, because we see his work through his apostle and through his messenger. What's unfortunate is this: we should be seeing it through us too. So it should not be just seeing it through the minister or the messenger. We should be showing Allah's, the proof of Master Fard Muhammad through our work. So they say, some people say that we follow a mystery God because we don't know where Master Fard Muhammad is, and we don't know where he is. He's not around. He's dead. He's gone. Not understanding that the proof that Master Fard Muhammad is alive and in power, and in fact is a true and living man who is God, is his apostle and messenger. Show me a man more powerful and relevant than the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. Show me in this day and time a man more powerful and relevant and significant to us in the whole world than the honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Both of those men are connected to Master Fard Muhammad. Any relevant black man in the history of America from June or July 4th, 1930, all progress can be traced directly to the coming of Master Fard Muhammad. You can take it or let it alone. I want to end this portion, part 2, by saying this. When you learn and study Islam, and then you begin to put your Islam to work, your works, what you demonstrate, is a result of what you think, and what you think is the cause of your understanding. So what you understand, you do. So your works will show forth your and my understanding. So if Allah or anybody else is to see our level of understanding or lack thereof, they are going to look at our works. So we say we are students. But I say that we are students who are Muslims and Muslims who are students because there's no difference. Allah is the supreme being. He's the supreme teacher. And we are his students. And he teaches us his will, and he is teaching us through agreement, not compliance, to bow down to his will. Bow down, to submit to his will. Submit is not like the devil with a whip. Submit means only to agree. So when you're talking in a conversation and somebody comes with a superior argument, you submit. You right. You right. Even if you don't have an understanding, but somebody has a more powerful product. You right. You right. Because apparently you know what you're talking about because what you're doing versus me. So you right. I'm gonna submit to that. Submit means to find an agreement. It also means to present. So if you're a student and Allah is testing you, giving you wisdom, and then giving you instructions, how do you answer Allah's instructions or answer Allah's test? It is through your demonstration. So every time we demonstrate what we know, we are submitting our answers to Allah. So every time we do something, what we do is submitting our answers to Allah, because what we do is our answers. So a Muslim submits his answers, gives his answers. I'm going to give you a test, okay? And I'm going to submit my answers. All right? Submit also means agreement. I agree. Simple. I agree. And since I agree, I'm going to comply. I'm not going to comply out of force, even though that remains an option. I'm going to comply because you make sense. And the only way I know that you make sense is because my product ain't as good as your product. My service ain't as good as your service. My demonstration is not as good as your demonstration. Or my argument is not as good as your argument. My understanding is not as good as your understanding. My knowledge is not as good as your knowledge. My wisdom is not as good as your wisdom. What you say, what you giving to me, makes more sense, and I agree with it more than my own thoughts and my own ideas, because my own thoughts and my own ideas have not produced the same results as you. So apparently my own thoughts and my own ideas are not as powerful as yours. So I'm going to put down mine and I'm going to accept yours, because in reality, by accepting you, I'm accepting me, because we're brothers and we're one in the same. You just been doing this thing a little bit more better, a little bit more efficiently, a little bit more proficiently, and you're blessed to have a superior understanding. And so I'm going to submit to you because you want what's best for me. I'm not submitting to you because you want to make me a slave. I'm not submitting to you because you want to make me into a tool, a negative tool. I'm not submitting to you because if I don't, you're going to kill me. Even though that always remains an option, I'm submitting to you because it makes sense, because I've studied you long enough to come to an understanding that it is in my best interest, in my children's best interest, in my family's best interest, my wife's best interest, my community's best interest, that I do so. So I submit openly. And because we submit through agreement, and we don't submit just because we've been forced to comply, then when we submit as Muslims, we submit in peace and with peace. So a true submitting Muslim who submits under the basis of agreement and not just compliance, we walk around peaceful. When you have other Muslims who claim to be Muslims, but you never see them at peace. Why? Because even though they say they submit, even though they call themselves Muslims, they are far from Muslims because they really don't agree with the God who they say they are submitting to. They are acting like it. They're kicking and screaming. It's difficult to make the prayers. It's difficult to fast. It's difficult to study. Memorize your lessons. Why don't we memorize our lessons? But we're bragging about 5 prayers a day. I don't say 5. Nowhere does it say 5 prayers a day in our instructions. Prayer. Not to say we're not supposed to do it. Understand? Why do we take so much pride in doing things that suit our own interests, maybe because it's easier than doing what Allah tells us to do. And if we are told to obey Allah and worship Allah, submit to Allah, and the instruction says to memorize our lessons by heart, memorize the lessons by heart. That is Allah's will. That is Allah's instruction. So how could we say we're with Allah and we're Muslims and we're obeying those instructions we're Muslims and we're obeying those instructions if we don't actually memorize our lessons like Master Fard Muhammad instructed us to do? And if we don't memorize our lessons, we are not following and obeying Allah. We are not worshiping as we should. That means we violated by not memorizing our first instruction, or memorizing lesson number 1 and following our first instruction. We violated the first restrictive law. The restrictive law is our success. So prove that we're violating the restrictive law. Do we have success? Success in what? What we're supposed to do. This teaches the student what he must do with the enemy of the righteous today. The righteous nation is now living in every part of planet Earth. Therefore, the enemy is now living in every part of planet Earth. The righteous nation is living in every part of planet Earth. Therefore, the enemy must now be removed in every part of the planet Earth. How are we doing with that? Are we successful? Do we have money, luxury, good home, friendships, and all walks of life? So we're doing all these different things. Scams, dreams, schemes, all these different things. Reinventing the wheel. Trying to come up with some get rich, type of ways to get some money. To be successful. The restrictive laws is our success. And our restrictive law says obey Allah and worship Allah. And the first instruction that we should obey is memorize our lessons by heart. But we fail to do it. So as long as we fail to memorize our lessons by heart, we're violating the restrictive laws. And if we're violating the restrictive laws, we're in bad standing with Allah. So why would Allah help us, or how could Allah help us if we're not in agreement with Him? Why would He help us if we don't agree with Him? See? We have to put ourselves in a position that Allah can work with us and through us. And it's said like this: Allah will not change the condition of anyone until they first change the condition of themselves. So Allah wants you to change your condition of rebellion. Stop being a blind follower and worshiper and be a student. A Muslim means student. Allah means teacher or civilizer. So what we have to do is be civilized and brought up into a thorough knowledge of ourselves. But we will not accept that knowledge and be able to put that knowledge to use if we don't first become students. And if we don't become students, we won't study. And if we don't study, we won't be able to memorize by heart. And if we don't memorize by heart, we are not following Allah's instructions. If we are not following Allah's instructions, then that means we're violating the restrictive laws. If we're violating these restrictive laws, that means we will not be successful. If we are not successful, that means we will not have no progress. If we don't have no progress, we are not fulfilling Allah's promise. If we are not fulfilling Allah's promise, that means we're not bound to His will. If we are not bound to His will, that means we ain't Muslims. Hypocrites. May Allah continue to bless you. Stay tuned for part 3. Peace.